Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Taco Society Presents. I'm here with Sydney.
Hello.
And where is he? Where's Phil?
He's
gone.
Yeah. We had a thing in the parking lot.
Oh, geez. Phil's, if your wife's watching, that's not true.
I don't mean that kind of thing.
Oh, what kind of thing?
Well, like a fight kind of a thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I know you. You probably bloodied him pretty badly, too.
Phil's got a dirty mind.
I know I do. I guess I do. Geez, now I'm embarrassed. Phil's daughter wasn't feeling too good today, so...
Poor Colette.
Yeah, we're very sorry for him, and we hope everything's okay. And Phil promised he'd be back next month rather, and we look forward to that. But we're still going to have fun anyways, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. How come we're going to have fun? We've got some guests.
Yeah, we've got some great guests.
Who we got here?
We have Karen Dent,
Ooh.
Roxanne Dent, her sister.
The Dent sisters.
The Dents.
Yeah.
Yep, the Dents. And we have Gregory Bastianelli.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time. You want to just get to it?
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll be right back. We're here with our first guest tonight, Roxanne Dent. I almost called you Karen, but I didn't.
Hi. You caught yourself.
I did. Welcome to the show.
Thank
You've
you.
got a bio to read for Roxanne.
Yes, I do. Roxanne Dent is a New York City transplant to Haverhill, Massachusetts since 2000. She has sold 9 novels and dozens of short stories to anthologies in a variety of genres, including paranormal fantasy, mysteries, horror, regencies, middle grade, and YA. She also writes plays and screenplays and collaborated with her sister, Karen, on 2 plays, Young at Heart and Monkey Girl Blues, which were put on at the Firehouse Theater in Newburyport. Young at Heart won the Newbie Award. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
The latest collaboration of the Dent sisters is a short noir mystery, The Death of Honeysuckle Rose, for the anthology Murder, Inc. Currently, Roxanne is working on Beyond the Iberian Sea, Book 2 of The Janus Demon, a paranormal fantasy, and finishing up a steampunk novel, Miss Anneli, is that right? Anneli Carter and the Dorian Generator.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you are busy.
Oh, I am very busy.
Wow.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I've read some of your stuff and listening to Sid's bio. You write in a number of genres.
I do.
How do you decide what you're going to write? I mean, you write in so many different styles.
Well, I just have a liking for a lot of different things. I think it all stems from when I started reading, because I was never someone who just read in one genre. I read a lot.
From a young age?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that extended to when I started writing. So whatever really pleases me, that's what I write.
So you have, if somebody invited you to an anthology, would you be able to switch gears and write whatever genre they requested?
At this point, yes.
Okay, not before though.
No, I actually was a little limited before, and then I expanded because I kept saying, "Well, I'll never do a zombie novel," but I did 4. So I think I'm a writer. I can write.
Good for you.
Yep,
Never say no.
that's right.
Sydney mentioned Young at Heart and Monkey
Yes.
Girl Blues. Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, we came up here from New York, and my mother moved from Haverhill to Newburyport, and we happened to see this list in the lobby saying writers wanted, and so we answered it, and it was a social worker, I believe, who was looking for people to write skits for her elderly community.
Wow.
And we decided instead we would write a play. And we opened it to anyone in the community who wanted to be in the play. And practically everybody did. So it was great, though. It was a wonderful experience, and we had some hilarious moments with that
Good
show.
for you. Yeah.
We had an elderly man who was over 90 on stage, and he fell asleep.
That's
And
fantastic.
my mother nudged him, and she went, "You're on!" And everybody cracked up. It was just one of
That's
those
cute.
things. Yeah.
So when did you start writing horror?
I actually wrote horror scenes in all my different books, except for my Regency. But I didn't start writing a horror story until I came to Haverhill.
So EWAG.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was EWAG that got me to do it because some of the people in the group were writing horror.
Same here.
You got a question for
Yes.
Roxanne?
So in the Janus Demon,
Yes.
you have a shape-shifting detective battling demons. Did you start writing that in EWAG?
I did, yes.
I remember that story.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, definitely. So you've built quite a fantasy world in that
Yes.
book. And I remember that too, that it was just, I can picture scenes from it still. How much do you enjoy that world building, and how do you keep track of all the elements?
Well, the first thing I did was buy a whiteboard. And then I wrote all the names of the main characters, and then I went on the computer and I wrote names of demons, fae, elves, and various words in ancient Irish, Celtic, and everything. And I had to, because you have to do that in a fantasy, otherwise you get completely lost.
And you're going to write a sequel to it.
I am, yes. I already have like about more than half of Beyond the Iberian Sea.
Nice.
How do you write? I mean, I talk about this, and it's part of the reason for the show, the process of writing. Do you nail your feet down? You got concrete buckets holding you down?
After I have my cup of coffee, yes.
Just one?
Oh no, many more. Yeah, I love my coffee. And I sit at the computer and I start writing, and if I'm not happy with what I'm writing, sometimes I'll shift to some other story that I want to write on. So I have a lot of different stories that I can turn to.
Do you outline?
I usually do a light outline. I don't do an in-depth outline. I get my names of my characters, the plot, the general plot, and setting, and that's it. I don't, because I like to let it be loose so that I can add scenes or do things that I want to do and not be, rigid.
I stole your question. I'm sorry.
Oh, you did?
How would you like to read number 9?
I don't know, I guess. Can you tell us a little bit about the writers groups you belong to now? Are you still with EWAG?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, we're still with EWAG, which is a support group.
What does that stand for?
Essex Writers and Artists Guild.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a very supportive group, and what they do is you read out loud whatever you're reading, and people are encouraging, and they don't offer critique. That's a different one. We do belong to a critique group. Some of the people in our writing group in EWAG are now in a critique group with us, and we also go to other groups and drop in on them. And I found that reading out loud was very valuable, because when you hear it, it's different than when you see it.
Absolutely.
And you can pick up on things that you missed. And
You'd suggest anybody join a writers group?
oh yes, absolutely. I think you can either a critique group, a support group, or both. I think you should have both, actually.
How many do you belong to? You got EWAG?
Right. And we have the critique group, and we have another group in New Hampshire that we drop in on from time to time, and another group in New Hampshire that we drop in on from time to time.
That's great.
And I would recommend, if you're going for a critique group, that you're careful, because you don't want to be savaged.
Right.
You want to hear stuff that will help your novel,
Makes sense. Yeah.
not be trashed.
We've got less than a minute. Tell me, Murder, Inc.
Yes, Murder, Inc. It was a great anthology. We found it because Karen and I went to a writer's luncheon, and Dan Cesney was there, who was the editor, and he asked if we'd like to join and write a story, and we did. We both turned to each other and said, yes, we're going to collaborate, because it had noir and mystery, which we both love.
Good. Good. You're going to read for us a little bit later on.
I am.
It's going to be a kind of cool thing because she's going to read with Karen. You're going to
Yes.
go back
Looking
and forth.
forward to that.
Sort of like an old radio show.
Yeah, that's how.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
cool. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for
Thanks.
inviting me.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk to your sister, Karen, in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we'll be right back after the magic swipe of the page from our producer. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We have the other Dent sister here. This is Karen.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
Why don't you kick it off and read her bio?
All right. So, much like her sister, Karen Dent is a New York City transplant to Bradford, Massachusetts since 2000. She's worn the hat of an actor, playwright, director, screenwriter, and filmmaker. And in recent years, she fell in love with writing fiction. To her writing credit, she sold a book of acting scenes and a number of short stories in a variety of genres, including horror, sci-fi, mystery, young adult, and middle grade. She also writes plays, screenplays, and television spec scripts. The Dent sisters collaborated on a one-act Young at Heart, which Karen also directed, and which garnered the Newbie Award from the Firehouse Center for the Arts.
Congratulations.
Thank
again.
you.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It was fun.
They also wrote a full-length romantic farce with political overtones, Monkey Girl Blues, which was picked to showcase in the New Works Festival, also performed at the Firehouse, which is a great place, by
I love
the way.
that place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their latest collaboration is a short noir mystery, The Death of Honeysuckle Rose, sold to Plaid Swede Books for the anthology Murder, Inc. Karen is now editing her first full-length novel, A Case to Kill For, a paranormal noir based on the same characters she created in A Case to Die For, a short story sold to Ticonderoga's anthology Damnation and Dames. Wow.
Wow. Who is that?
You and your,
That's you.
you and your
Yeah.
sister both are just like,
On fire.
whew.
Well,
Let's talk about your sister. What's your favorite gift from your sister?
oh my gosh. It is the novel, the very first novel she ever wrote for me, called
Oh.
Kareen. And my BFF, Sandra Block, when I was 16, came over to my house and we read the entire book
I was going to say, how old
aloud.
was this? How old were you?
I was 16.
16. Okay.
Yeah. And read it aloud. We squealed, all during the whole thing. Didn't get to the ending at all, which was apparently, for my sister, was a shock.
How old
'Cause-
was she at the time?
Well, we're 6 years apart, so she was like 22.
Oh my God.
Now, is this a published book or just something she
no,
wrote for
it was
you?
something
Yeah?
she wrote for me,
Isn't
and she
that
put it
something?
aside, and that's what started her on her 9 novels.
Good for her.
Yeah, she
is-
said, "Hey,
I
I
have the
think I could do that."
goosebumps.
Yeah, I know, it was so
Wow.
great. I keep telling her she really has to put it on the computer, look at it, and try selling it. It'll be a great
Sure.
YA. It's a Gothic,
Yeah.
a Western Gothic.
Western.
Yes.
What a
yes.
great gift.
She was great. She was great.
Aside from Roxanne, anybody else in your family supportive of your writing? Or
Oh, absolutely. My mom and dad were both creatives.
Oh, really?
My father and mother belonged to the federal acting group, so they would tour America.
Uh-huh.
And then he got the writing bug, and so they retired. They didn't retire. They became cottage parents at a children's home because they promised that he would have a lot of time to write. So he wrote plays and he wrote
Good for him.
novels. Yeah.
That's in your blood then. It's in your
yeah,
DNA.
yeah, I guess. And of
Jeez.
course, my grandfather. Well, he's another story.
Oh, is that good or bad?
That's for the next time I come.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, we do want to have you back.
Yes, we do.
thank you.
You got a couple questions.
Yes, so I wanted to ask about, we're in a book together, Bugs.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask about your story, Contamination, in that anthology, Bugs, Tales That Slither, Creep, and Crawl. You actually dabble in science fiction horror. So are you a sci-fi geek deep down, or was that a one-time shot?
I find that I actually love writing science fiction, love it, and combined with horror, Really, I love it.
You
It's
can't go wrong.
Fun, no, and of course the geek part you can always like apply to me. But but I love, like my sister, I love reading all sorts of stories, genre. I love writing different stories. We just finished a mystery, noir mystery,
Yep.
and
Which we'll talk about.
which
Yep.
we'll be reading
Yep.
a little bit later. And I wrote a couple of twists to some of the stories that we were asked to. In fact, I think the Greenleaf anthology that we wrote.
We're going to talk to you about that. in a
Oh,
minute,
okay. Yeah, so I love putting a little twist of sci-fi on it, on whatever I write.
Yeah, someone told us that you participated in that charity anthology based off the works of
Oh, yeah.
the New England literary great John Greenleaf Whittier. So why don't you tell us about that and how it was writing something that relates not only to another's work but to the works of a legend?
It was really hard because I actually liked a lot of his stories. The one that I ended up picking was something that the editor, the person who put it together, David Goodsworth, said, I don't know how you're going to make that like a horror, but okay, go ahead. And it was I called Deadly Regrets, and it's a science fiction
Another science
horror,
fiction,
and
yeah.
it's all about be afraid about what you regret from your previous life. Take an opportunity to do something at the moment rather than regretting it for the rest of your life.
What are the sci-fi elements in that?
Well, it takes place in the future. That's
Okay.
one. And then it's about a planetary thing that inhabits a person, and the person that's left on Earth doesn't know it, and it's about being assimilated and all sorts of yummy things.
That's science
Wow.
fiction.
Yeah.
Oh. You write different genres. If you had to pick a mentor or somebody that you really learned a lot from, it could be personal or it could be somebody that you've read. Who would you pick?
Yikes. Well, I love Jim Butcher
Oh, okay.
and his
yep.
Dresden
Yep.
series.
Yep.
I love him. And I like a lot of the things that he goes into the fantasy. I love fantasy as well. So, I don't know. I guess I would say him, and of course Roxanne.
That's so cute. They're so close for sisters, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's really
yeah.
6
true
years
some-
difference.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
We've got less than a minute, but do you have any advice to offer other people that are coming into the writing business, or not even business, as a hobby? What can you tell these people? What advice would you give them?
I would say keep writing, keep submitting, no matter what. Don't take rejection personally. And if something isn't selling, put it aside for a little bit so that you get a chance to look at it with fresh eyes. That's it.
It's great advice.
You're in an anthology called Murder Inc.
Yes,
And you're going to be reading from that from us.
I am.
Yeah, you and
Roxanne and I.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the two sisters reading. We can't wait.
Cool.
Yeah.
we're looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for being on the show. And we're going to cut right now, and we're going to come back in a few minutes to see them read. Welcome back, you guys. You're going to read for us.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
are.
are.
Yeah, from Murder Inc. Go ahead. Just start.
March 13, 1945.
The ugly weather matched my gray, dreary mood. The 4 aspirin I took when I got up weren't working, and the pounding rain didn't help. Rushing to my office at the Portsmouth Daily Gazette took seconds, but my ankle straps and Lana Turner side sweep were soaked. As I headed to my desk, I glared at Jack Bryce. Jack was our ace crime reporter. I, on the other hand, was stuck writing Miss Lonely Hearts. I plunked down and stared at the fat folder next to my Remington. I shouldn't have had that 5th scotch. Yesterday was my 25th birthday. My dream job as crime reporter was no closer than when I was first hired a year ago. As to my love life, it was colder than a meat locker. I removed my compact and tried to repair my face. Reproachful green eyes stared back, reflecting disillusion and disappointment.
Hey, Ruby, your boyfriend give you the brush off?
Frank Martin was in charge of the sports page.
I think Frank has the hots for you, Ruby.
Jack said.
Not me, I'm married.
When did that ever stop a wandering eye?
Cynic.
Mac, editor of the Gazette, burst out of his office, his round face red with excitement. I knew that look even before he started shouting.
There's been a murder on Smithfield Street. A girl named Maisie looks like a domestic. Jack, Take the kid with you. Show him the ropes and see if you can get the drop on that German spy the feds arrested.
The kid was 19-year-old Gary, until now, our gopher. I leaped up. Nobody move. You promised I could cover the next murder, Mac.
She was bludgeoned to death. Lots of blood, messy, no place for a woman.
Not a woman, I'm a reporter.
Not this one, Ruby.
Mac checked his pocket watch like he was the White Rabbit late for lunch with the Queen. Rushing back into the safety of his office, he slammed the door.
Too bad. Maybe next time.
I swung a punch at Jack as he passed.
Ow, that hurt.
He grabbed my wrist. His blue eyes were sympathetic.
You've got looks, brains, and moxie, babe, but Mac's a dinosaur. He's never gonna let a dame cover a murder.
Frank pulled on his black overcoat.
I'm due at Portsmouth High to interview Mickey Bolton. The boy's a basketball genius. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Make a fresh pot of coffee, Ruby. That way the messages will make sense. Besides, your coffee is the best.
Must be my spit that makes it so tasty, I yelled as they disappeared. Eve Peterson glided in, looking perfect as always. Eve worked 3 days a week and was in charge of the society pages and gossip column. She was everything I wasn't. Feminine, sophisticated, and rich. I hated her. Stalking over to Jack's desk, I searched for anything I could use for a newsworthy story good enough to be promoted to junior crime reporter.
You know, darling.
Eve laid her crocodile purse down on the desk and carefully removed her black tilt hat with leopard trim, leopard fur coat, and black leather gloves.
It wouldn't hurt if you wore a dress once in a while and were a little less combative. I think Jack likes you.
Oh, Jack likes all women, Eve, even you.
Had one too many last night. Why are you rummaging around on Jack's desk?
Don't you have a nasty scandal to write up? Eve sniffed, gave me the cold shoulder, and began her usual hunt and peck on the old Underwood. A crumpled paper in Jack's trash caught my eye. I smoothed it out.
The body of Miss Alva Hammond, 25, was caught on the rocks off Newcastle Beach. A suspected suicide. Her clothes were found nearby.
Eve noticed me rooting around in Jack's trash.
You really are pathetic.
I was too shocked to respond. I knew Alva. She was man-crazy, but too self-involved to kill herself. I frowned. Alva almost drowned twice and had an obsessive fear of the ocean. A memory kicked in of how she continuously played Charlie Parker's version of Honeysuckle Rose until she drove me nuts. I rushed over to my desk and pulled out a letter from the most recent Miss Lonely Hearts pile.
I'm afraid the man I'm in love with isn't who he says he is, Honeysuckle Rose.
Okay, it didn't shriek murder, but I was desperate. I knocked on Mac's door.
Come in.
Shouting was a way of life for Mac.
The answer's no.
Relax, it's not the murder.
Sit.
I sat down in the chair in front of his beat-up wooden desk, crossed my long legs, and smiled.
Jesus, Ruby, I hate it when you smile like that. You look like a hungry shark. What do you want?
I came across the suicide of a young girl. It would make a great human interest story about the dangers of a pretty young thing all alone in the city.
Yeah, I saw it. Alva Hammond. Sad. The answer's no. Too depressing.
Oh, come on, boss. Everyone's got a daughter or a sister.
The war is almost over. People want to hear good news. I told Jack we're giving her death a line on the back page.
But, boss...
Sorry, Ruby. Unless it's murder, troops are marching on Berlin. It's all anyone's talking about.
Well, even better. Let me write a piece about the war.
Ruby, you're killing me. That's Jack's baby.
Oh, throw me a bone, Mac. Let me do Alva's story.
I guess I owe you, so long as you keep it squeaky clean. Just tell Hal you're happy here, and no more talk of being a crime reporter.
Hal was my godfather. He played golf with Mac every Saturday and gave the Gazette a fortune in advertising. I had no illusions. That's why Mac hired me. The Sharp family owned the biggest funeral home in Portsmouth. Eddie liked me, but not that way. He preferred the other team. A great dancer, a good friend. He and I hit it off at the Starlight Lounge on Friday nights.
What's up, Sugar Plum?
I need to see a corpse.
I thought you liked them warm.
Keep working on your stand-up. Alva Hammond, an apparent suicide?
Nothing apparent about it. She left her shoes, purse, and coat and walked into the ocean. Doc Milford signed off on the suicide.
Yeah, well, no offense to the medical referees, but they're not exactly knowledgeable about murder.
Who said anything about murder?
Strictly on the QT? I knew her. Alva had a morbid fear of the ocean. Why kill herself by sucking up salt water?
Suicides are unpredictable.
True, but Alva's bottom line was always Alva. Did she leave a note?
No, but not every suicide leaves a nice, neat note.
Is her body still here?
It is, and Mrs. Hammond is on her way, Cookie.
Oh, I didn't want to run into Alva's mother. She saw me as the bad influence in her daughter's life, keeping her out all hours. That was a laugh. Alva didn't need my help in getting in trouble. She's wearing a hell of a lot of makeup.
She was cut up pretty bad on the rocks, poor kid.
I rolled up her sleeves.
What are you doing?
Looking for needle marks or bruises.
I'm telling you, there's nothing fishy about her death.
Never thought one of us would end up here so soon.
No one ever does.
It doesn't add up. How come a dame like Alva didn't just swallow a bottle of pills? She'd want to lay down in her best frock and fur coat and drift off. What she wouldn't want was fish picking at a beautiful face.
Maybe she wasn't thinking straight and couldn't get a prescription. You're positive she was murdered.
I am, and I'm going to find out why.
You guys did an excellent job.
Thank
Excellent
you.
job.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. If you want to know how it ends, Murder Inc. You guys going to be at Gibson's bookstore this?
Yes, we
This
are.
Saturday.
So either the show will be before or after it. So if it's before, I hope you go there, Gibson's, and take a few minutes to listen to their stories
And
talk
other
to them.
stories from
Yes.
Yeah.
the anthology,
Great.
the other
And
writers.
also, a lot of the people that wrote stories in there are journalists and
Actual journalists.
actual journalists.
Great. Thank you guys
You're
very much.
welcome.
And I
Thank
hope
you for
make it
inviting
back
us.
here.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
us.
very much.
Yes, thank you. We'll be back in a moment. We're here with our last guest tonight. This is Gregory Bastianelli. I said it right?
Yes.
I did.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Greg is a New Hampshire native, and he's a graduate of the University of New Hampshire. He's worked for nearly 2 decades at a daily newspaper where the highlights of his career were interviewing shock rocker Alice Cooper and B-movie icon Bruce Campbell. 2 thumbs up.
Very cool.
He is the author of the novels Joker's Club and Loonies. His stories have appeared in several genre magazines and anthologies. His novella Lair of the Mole People appeared in the pulp anthology Men of Mystery Volume 11 or Volume 2.
Volume two.
Those darn, what do you call them?
Roman numerals.
He's a member of the Horror Writers Association and the New England Horror Writers. Aren't they the same thing?
No,
No?
not even close.
Jeez, I gotta look at this. And he lives in Dover, New Hampshire. He's all yours.
All right, great. So, Loonies, your latest novel, was inspired by a cold case in Somersworth, New Hampshire. What made you decide to fictionalize that story, and is there any truth to the New England set tale that you tell in your book? Tell us about the crime and why it interested you enough to write Loonies. I'd like to hear about
Well,
that.
it was just a crime that had always fascinated me. It came out in the early '80s in Somersworth when a couple discovered a steamer trunk that had been given to them 20 years before. They had stored it. Someone asked them to store it in their house, and they put it in their cellar and forgot about it. And 20 years later, they decided to open it up, and what they found inside, which I cannot say because it's actually what I have inside my steamer trunk.
So there
One
is some
spoiler.
truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what they found inside triggered this crime case that to this day is still remains unsolved.
Wow.
And it dated back to the 1940s and early 1950s. So it was just one of those cases that was just mysterious and fascinating, and I always said to myself that someday I want to write a book about this. Someday I want to write a book about this, and
You did.
and I did, and I pretty much, except for what's found in the trunk, everything else I made up, and I just had a lot of fun with it. It turned out to be kind of like a giant jigsaw puzzle, and I had all these pieces, and every single piece had to just fit exactly right for the whole story to work. It's more than one mystery. It's a layer of mysteries throughout the
Wow.
book.
How long did it take you to write?
I spent about a year writing it, but probably about 20 years thinking about it.
Wow. How close is Somersworth to Dover? Where you
It's just the next town,
Oh,
bordering
wow.
town.
Interesting. Okay. So then Joker's Club, your debut novel from Journal Stone Publishing. The protagonist is like a down-on-his-luck writer who rediscovers
me.
his childhood muse. Well, I don't know about down on his luck, but you're a writer. So do you have a muse? And considering the main character of Loonies is a newspaper reporter, which I know that you were as well, I'm sensing that there might be a theme in your writing. One protagonist is a writer, one's a newspaper reporter. How much of yourself do you write into your characters, if at all?
Well, definitely with Joker's Club, there was a lot of personal stuff in that. I think that a lot of the struggles I went through trying to write Joker's Club, it was a long process. It took me over 25 years to write that book.
How old are you?
I know, my God. Did you start writing like in the womb or?
It was funny because with Joker's Club, I actually started writing it on a manual typewriter, and then I switched to one of those word processors that Smith Corona had, where he had 7 lines of
I
text
remember
on the
him, yeah.
screen.
Oh my gosh.
And then I did rewrites on a desktop computer, and then I did my final draft on a laptop. So
Wow.
that book went through the whole evolution of
Oh, that's
electronic writing
interesting.
mechanisms.
Wow.
But I just kept at it. I'd put it away. Sometimes it would sit for 2 or 3 years, and I'd pick it up and work on it again. So I was very
You-
much the struggling writer.
Your muse grew old with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
No
Jeez.
stone carvings or in any caves or no.
Not that I know of.
Hieroglyphics.
But-
You know, I've seen you at New England Horror
Anthicon.
Writers meetings. I've seen you at Anthicon. I guess you haven't been to Nikon, but you're
No,
you're
I would
thinking
certainly
of
like to
going.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does living in New England influence you at all when you're writing? I mean, I know the story from Somersworth was made into a book, but aside from that, do you find other parts of New England lore or the atmosphere creeping into your
Well,
books?
I mean, I think what people think of New England, they think of autumn, and of course, when you think of autumn, you think of October, and that's when all the scary things happen in October. And horror in New England goes, way back. You have Edgar Allan Poe, born in Boston, H.P. Lovecraft,
Yeah,
who
good, yeah.
made much of New England horror throughout.
Made it what it
coast.
is, yeah.
And all the way back to the Salem witch trials. Horror,
Definitely.
this is where horror began.
Yeah.
This is where horror is found. So, and I was born in October, so it just kind of all fits
Oh,
together.
wow. Wow. Yeah, good point. So I wanted to ask you about your upcoming piece in Shroud magazine called The Dandelion Man, which I loved, by the way, and congratulations on your acceptance.
Thank you.
It seems to be about perfectionism and perspective. Do you call yourself a perfectionist? And if so, in what ways does that quality affect your writing?
Well, that's probably, maybe I am a perfectionist because that's why it took me 25 years to write jokes.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I'm thinking more and more you might be.
I just, it's nice to try to get things to be just right, even every little sentence, every little word. Doesn't always work out that way. As soon as I finished Jokers Club and it was the set for publication date, there were things I wanted to change. But that's part of being a writer.
It is part of being a
Yes.
writer.
live with that.
I really liked The Dandelion Man.
I'll have to read it, yeah.
And it was very interesting to read it and think about it in terms of symbolism and the perfectionism and
Good. Yeah, I like Shroud, so I'll definitely pick it up and read it.
yeah.
You're going to
It's-
read for us, though.
I am,
Yeah,
yes. I'm going to
very
read
cool.
from Loonies.
Excellent. It's only on Kindle now, though, by the way, Shroud, just so you
Oh,
know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. From now on.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to start at the beginning because, as all good mysteries, that's where you should start.
Absolutely.
And if I read anything else, it would spoil some things. And I'm going to jump around just a little bit in the beginning. The first chapter is called The Trunk in the Attic. Smoky Hollow had the appearance of a quiet and quaint New England town until the day the trunk in the attic was opened. Brian Keyes left his downtown newspaper office at the end of the day to stroll over to the police station when he got the call from his wife. Darcy had been poking around in the attic of the house they had just settled into when she discovered an old steamer trunk. He didn't like the idea of her going up the drop-down ladder that led to the attic space. She was 4 months pregnant, and the thought of her missing a step and falling backwards onto the floor unnerved him. She was curious, she told him, and excited about exploring their new home. When he asked what was in the trunk, she informed him it was locked. There was a small keyhole, and she had been thinking about jamming a screwdriver in it to try to open the trunk. He told her not to wait until he got home. Those old steamer trunks were valuable to antique dealers if they were in good shape. He didn't want her damaging it trying to open it. She wasn't happy about waiting, but she ended up being glad she did. If she had opened it by herself, she might have gone insane. And then I'm going to jump to where Brian goes to the police chief to talk about, and he tells him about something that the previous police chief had told him he had discovered. Noah began to tell him about the former police chief Pfeffercorn, now retired and living in Florida. He had run the quiet town for many years, but felt his career was tarnished by his inability to solve the Timmy Birch disappearance. Timmy Birch had been 4 years old when he went missing one summer night. He was snatched from his bedroom while he slept. About 16 years after the disappearance and a few years before retiring, Chief Pfeffercorn had made a seemingly innocuous discovery. He had left the station around midnight and was walking along Main Street and some of the side streets around downtown when he happened upon something, a key. Noah said the chief told him that he needed to find the lock it fit. Somehow he had gotten into his head that the key opened something important, that he had been destined to find it and that he couldn't retire until he found the lock. It had become a compulsion. The chief had told him he never stopped trying until the day he retired. Noah said he could see the sadness in the chief's eyes on the day of his retirement. Not that he was leaving, but that he never found the lock the key went to. And when he retired, Noah said, he left this with me. Noah turned the coffee mug over and a key clattered onto the desktop. And you think this key might go to the steamer trunk in my attic? I have no idea, but Pfeffercorn told me where the key was found, and it was near your house. Noah followed Brian home, and Darcy showed him where she had found the trunk. The three of them stood in the attic of the Keys' house. It was hot and stuffy, the air stagnant. Darcy had pulled the trunk to the middle of the floor beneath one of the main dim light bulbs. Noah stood by, rubbing the key in his right hand. Brian looked at the smile on his face. But what were the odds the key actually went to this trunk? Here goes nothing, Noah said, getting on his knees before the trunk. Brian and Darcy leaned over his shoulders. Noah slipped the key in with a little bit of a struggle. He was trying to force it, Brian thought, to make it fit. But then there was a click, and Brian felt a well of amazement swell up in him as the lock popped open. Would you look at that, Noah said, looking back at them with a wide grin. He raised the lid of the trunk, standing in the process. The top of the lid shielded some of the light from the bulb overhead, shadowing the contents somewhat, so all Brian could see were yellowed newspapers wrapped around some objects. Noah reached in and grabbed one bundle, lifting it out with care. Whatever it is, it's very light. And as he said in a whisper, as if afraid to let anyone else hear, he set the parcel on the floor. He lifted some of the newspaper, which cracked and tore in his fingers. It was like peeling the layers of an onion. Brian peered closer as Noah folded back the last layer.
Wow.
To find out what's in there.
Buy the book.
Buy the book.
Well, thank you very much. That was great.
Yes,
It was funny.
great
We had
reading.
an old-time radio story, a noir story. We've got
Yeah.
this, which has definite shades of noir to it.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you very much.
You're
Great
welcome.
reading.
We appreciate you coming here. And
Thanks,
Thank you.
Greg.
Great to be here.
Thank
Yes.
you.
thank you, and we'll be right back. Wow, that was a show.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, hopefully we can get these guests, Greg and Roxanne and Karen, to come back again at another time.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for watching, and Phil, we hope your daughter's okay, and we hope everybody else in your family's doing fine, and we will see you next month.
Yeah, we'll see you next month.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching.